Hey everybody, this is Raptor Dad Gaming, and in this video, we're going to do a basic air-to-ground tutorial for the F-16. Let's get started. First, we'll take a look at the controls. I recommend binding the radar cursor to an axis if you have it, and it makes it a lot easier to move the targeting pod as well as some of the other weapons and sensors. From here, we'll go to the manual ranging knobs. This helps us to get our fine zoom with the targeting pod. And then next are the DMS switches, specifically DMS down to make the left MFD soy, or sensors of interest, and then DMS up to make the right side soy. Next are the target management switches, TMS down to unlock a target, TMS up to create a point track, and then TMS left to cycle between the different modes on the targeting pod, the TV, white hot, and black hot. Helps with spotting targets. Next is the FOV expand button. This helps us to get a fine view for both the targeting pod as well as our HTS pod. Next is the nose wheel steering depress button. This helps us to select between our different modes, our CCIP, CCRP. Next we have the gun trigger mode, which helps us to fire our laser, but I'm going to show you a way to basically almost make it like an auto laze. And then last but most certainly not least, our weapon release button. First, we'll take a look at one of the easier munitions, the JDAMS. Make sure they are powered on. If you are starting from a cold start, it takes about 10 minutes or so. Make sure you see ready. Then all you have to do ultimately is steer the aircraft toward the steer point. Make sure you have the right location highlighted. HUD symbology wise, not much to it. See, we've got a distance, and you see this bar here that tells you how far away you are from the target. Once you see that sideways V that's next to the 20 start to drop within the bar, or you see the counter count down to 0, you know you can release the weapon. Additionally, this is a kinematic weapon, so the higher and faster you go, the greater range you'll have. 1, so we'll go ahead and release our first JDAM. Select our next steer point. Released another, and then go ahead and release our third one, and that's how you can rapidly ripple your JDAMs. Super easy. Recommend not looking at the targeting pod because it might go slightly off center from the target. You do not need to make a point track or anything else. From here, we'll sit back and watch the fireworks. 1, 2, most certainly not least 3. Boom. JDAMs are a very easy, simple, effective way to knock out multiple targets in rapid succession. If you're not able to make the waypoints or the steer points before the start of the mission, you can do it actually in flight as well. We'll show that in another video. Next, we want to talk about the harms. Similar to the JDAMs, you'll need to power them on, so make sure you give yourself 3 to 5 minutes prior to an engagement, or do this on cold start. Recommend doing this right as you spawn in. From here, we will select our HAD, click the middle button on that left MFD, and then at the very top for HAD. Once we do, we're going to expand FOV. This is how you get that fine zoom. We do want to target the SA6 specifically, so once we do, we'll hit TMS up. And now you can see we've got HTS on our HUD, and then very similar symbology to the JDAM as far as ranging. Since we're already in range, it's flashing, and you see there's no timer. If we were a little bit further away, we'd have some timing to let us know when we would be in range. Since we are good to go, we can fire. Normally I like to do a little bit of loft just to give our arms a little bit of range. However, prior to firing, I want to draw your attention to PGM2. This ranges from PGM 5 to 2, or 5 to 1 actually, as this gives you a rough estimate of how likely you are to hit the target. 5 being the least likely, 1 being the most likely. 2 is definitely acceptable as you'll hit the target roughly 90% of the time. So if you're PGM 2, clear to fire. A little bit of loft and let it fly. The AGM-88 is a fire and forget missile, so once you're locked onto the target, you can fire, start doing maneuvering, start evading, etc. as needed. You have a rough range of about 40 nautical miles depending upon your kinematics, so speed and altitude can increase that range. Inversely, if you're a little bit lower, that can also reduce your range, so just keep that in mind. From here, we sit back and let the harm do its thing. Laser guided munitions are great for a multitude of reasons. You can carry a lot of them, specifically the GBU-12, and you can hit bunkers and moving targets like tanks. So first, we'll select them on our right MFD. Make sure we're in CCRP mode by pressing our nose wheel steering button. We'll go to the left MFD. Select our targeting pod. Press DMS down to make it our sensor of interest. Press TMS left to go to white hot from TV mode so we can see our targets a little bit better. From here we will switch to steer point 3, as we know that's where our target is. And then we will press our manual ranging knob to clockwise to zoom in, and then press expand FOV to get a finer zoom. And we'll press TMS up to create a point track. Also go ahead and turn on our laser. From here, we'll steer the aircraft to our vertical steering line, or bomb fall line. That's exactly where the bomb will fall, and so since we have a point track, we just need to fly to it. So I'm going to accelerate time here for a little bit, and you're going to see a timer at the bottom right of the HUD there. You can see right now it's at 26 seconds. That's going to let us know when we need to release our munition. So you're going to see two timers here. The first one's going to be for lofting. If we wanted to give our bomb a little bit more range, then we would launch it at this particular time. Go ahead and give a specific nose up degree that we need to be at to release it, and then the munition will release. However, since we're just dropping it nice and level, we're going to wait for the second one. See, we're at the 3, 2, 1 here. We're holding our weapon release button leading up to that, and munition automatically comes off the rail. You see our laser is firing, so we're pressing that trigger detent number 2, second trigger detent, and that laser is firing. You can tell that basically by the L flashing. On our MFD, on the bottom right side, you can see we've got that timer going down there. That's the time of flight until it impacts the target. Make sure you keep your targeting pod viewed directly on the actual target. Otherwise, else you run the risk of it getting obstructed. It could hit something, or it could miss the target. So there we go, good shack. Lastly, I want to show you how to essentially make it an auto laser. We'll press list 0, 5 for the laser, and then we'll dobber it down to laser start time. Instead of 8 seconds, you can go ahead and bring it up to 25 seconds or even greater if you wish. Dumb bombs are pretty straightforward. You can drop them either in CCRP, very similar to the laser guided munitions, or you can drop them in CCIP, which is a lot more difficult, but pretty fun too. So we're going to select them here, and we are going to use our targeting pod to help us find the target. We know which steer point the target is around, so we're going to stay in CCRP for now. We're going to make our left MFD soy, DMS down. You see the target, we're going to create a point track, and we're going to fly our aircraft to that general vicinity. Again, we could use CCRP and drop it just the same, but you do not have a laser, so you have to be a lot more precise. So we know where the target is, thereabouts, and so we're going to switch to CCIP, which our symbology will change. It's kind of the pickle barrel. And basically, once we visually lay eyes on the target, we're going to put that little circle right on the target and hit the munition release. It's a lot more difficult than CCRP, where you just hold the munition until you're at the right point. So fingers crossed, here we go, boom. And we'll see if that hits. Boom! Alright! This mode can also be utilized for low-level bombing, but we'll demonstrate that in another video. Lastly, we'll talk about the AGM-65D Mavericks, another great munition with a very short range. There's a couple different ways you can launch them, so we'll step through that. Additionally, there's a couple different versions of them, but we're going to go just with the AGM-65Ds for now. So first, like the other munitions, make sure that they are powered on. If you do a cold start, you're going to need another 3 to 5 minutes to make sure they're warmed up. This might actually be 10 minutes. After this, we're going to switch to the weapons page, so it brings up the actual seeker head on the Maverick. We're going to make this DMS down and make this our sensor of interest. so we can see where our targets are. We're specifically looking for 3 APCs out here. A little difficult to see, so I'm actually going to look outside here and see if I can visually spot them, which there we are, can see them. And in Viz mode, that's exactly what you're doing. It's a combination of both the seeker head and your heads-up display. You can see them, but they're very difficult. Unfortunately, unlike the targeting pod, there's no infrared mode, so we can't see white hot or black hot. Bore sight is the exact same thing. You're just seeing a little bit more precise seeker head, if you will, or perhaps cursor, which is the actual seeker head on the Maverick, but very similar to Viz mode. You press TMS up to actually lock the target. You can see the BSGT there in the top left corner. Let you know that you have a target locked up. TMS down to unlock that target. But you can see how you can rapidly fire on multiple targets. Next, we'll go over pre-mode, and for this you can actually use the targeting pod to use this as your primary sensor to look at the target and potentially lock it up. So we'll DMS down to make this our sensor of interest. We're going to move that around, see if we can't find these APCs. They're somewhere around here. I'm not able to see them very well, despite making the black hot. So there we go. We'll take a visual look. There we go. We'll turn to TV mode. And actually, you can see them better in TV. That's kind of rare to see them better in TV mode than white hot or black hot. So we'll turn that manual to auto. That's auto handoff essentially. We'll TMS up. And the seeker head did not see it. We did not see the actual handoff there. So I'm going to zoom in, go back to the targeting pod. Going to use our clockwise manual ranging mode to zoom in, as well as the field of view zoom. From here, we will TMS up to lock the target. And weapon release to fire. Next, we'll switch back to bore sight mode, so I can show you how to ripple these against multiple targets rapidly. So we'll visually move our seeker head from our HUD to kind of help us get in the general vicinity. Go back to our weapon display, TMS up, fire, find the next target, TMS up, and fire. Another great thing about the Mavericks is despite the target moving after you have released the munition, it'll still go ahead and track them, so you don't have to worry about maintaining a lock or anything like that. That's going to do it for this video. If you found any of this helpful, consider liking and subscribing. After that out, thanks for watching.